Welcome to Female Min Decode, where we uncover the psychology behind relationships, attraction, boundaries, and the behaviors that reveal what people truly feel. Sometimes the biggest red flags don't look dangerous at first. They look like things you can easily forgive. But keep ignoring the patterns, and they can cost you your peace, confidence, and self-respect. Here's where the real danger begins. When you genuinely care about someone, you can start overlooking things you would normally never accept from another person. You tell yourself it's nothing serious. You convince yourself that it was harmless, accidental, or simply part of her personality. But sometimes, what you dismiss as a small issue is actually an early sign that your boundaries and self-respect are being pushed aside. And the longer you ignore those behaviors, the more normal they become. Eventually, you may find yourself accepting things that the man you were before the relationship would have never tolerated. But it doesn't have to reach that point. There are certain behaviors you should never blindly excuse. They may not automatically mean betrayal, but they can reveal serious problems with respect, trust, boundaries, and commitment. So today, we're going through 10 behaviors that deserve your attention before they create damage that becomes much harder to repair. Before we get into the first one, make sure you subscribe to Female Mindset and like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to see how far this message reaches, because relationship struggles may look different from one person to another, but many men find themselves dealing with the same warning signs. Now let's begin, because the first one can easily be dismissed as playful behavior when it may actually reveal something much deeper. Number 1, she continues flirting with other men even though she is committed to you. Some people will tell you that flirting is meaningless. They'll say she's simply being friendly, outgoing, or playful. But context matters. There is a difference between being naturally social and repeatedly seeking romantic attention from other men while you're supposed to be building an exclusive relationship. If she regularly flirts with waiters, co-workers, strangers, or other men right in front of you, don't immediately convince yourself that you're imagining the problem. Pay attention to the pattern and, more importantly, pay attention to how she responds when you communicate that it bothers you. A healthy relationship requires boundaries that both people understand and respect. If she knows something crosses a boundary for you but continues doing it simply because she enjoys the attention, then the issue is bigger than flirting. It becomes a question of whether your feelings and boundaries matter to her. And this is where many men make a serious mistake. They notice something that makes them uncomfortable, but instead of addressing it, they laugh it off. They don't want to appear jealous. They don't want to seem controlling. They tell themselves they should be more relaxed. But there's a difference between controlling someone and having standards for the relationship you're willing to participate in. You cannot control who she talks to or how she behaves, but you can decide what you will and will not accept from someone who claims to be committed to you. If she constantly needs attention from other men to feel desirable, that deserves a closer look. It doesn't automatically mean she will cheat, but it can reveal a strong dependence on outside validation. And if you constantly feel like you're competing with an endless line of men for her attention, eventually that competition will drain your confidence and your peace. You shouldn't have to fight an invisible audience just to feel secure in your own relationship. Love without respect becomes exhausting. Attraction without boundaries creates confusion, and commitment means very little if one person repeatedly behaves as though the relationship's boundaries don't apply to them. So don't ignore the pattern simply because you're afraid of losing her. Have the conversation. Make your expectations clear. Then watch what she does afterward, because her response will often tell you more than the original behavior. Number 2, watch how she behaves with her phone around you. Now, let's be clear. Everyone deserves personal privacy. Being in a relationship does not mean surrendering your passwords. handing over your phone, or allowing your partner to inspect every private conversation. Healthy relationships need trust, and trust does not require constant surveillance. But there is a difference between privacy and suspicious secrecy. If her entire demeanor changes whenever you come near her phone, that's worth noticing. Maybe she suddenly becomes tense. Maybe she immediately turns the screen away. Maybe she becomes unusually defensive whenever you ask a completely normal question. Perhaps she keeps the phone hidden constantly or becomes evasive about who she is talking to. None of these behaviors automatically proves that she is cheating or hiding something romantic. But repeated secrecy can create a serious trust problem, especially when there is already other behavior making you uncomfortable. The important question isn't simply, what is she hiding? The bigger question is, why does this relationship make me feel like I have to investigate the person I'm supposed to trust? Think about what you give to someone you love. You give them your time, your emotional energy, your plans, your vulnerability. You allow them into parts of your life that most people never get to see. That kind of intimacy cannot survive indefinitely when one person constantly feels like something is being kept from them. And this is where you need to stay rational. Don't turn suspicion into an accusation without evidence. Don't invade her privacy simply because you feel anxious. Instead, communicate directly. Tell her what you've noticed. Explain how the behavior makes you feel. Give her the opportunity to respond. Then pay attention to the response. Does she calmly explain the situation and help rebuild your sense of security? Does she understand why the pattern concerns you? Or does she immediately attack you, manipulate the conversation, make you feel crazy for asking, and refuse to address the underlying issue? That reaction matters. A relationship cannot grow where every uncomfortable question becomes a battle. You shouldn't have to live beside someone while constantly wondering what is happening behind a locked screen. Privacy is healthy. Secrecy that repeatedly destroys trust is something else. You cannot build genuine intimacy on constant suspicion. And you cannot create peace by repeatedly ignoring the things that disturb it. If you consistently feel like you're standing outside a locked door, wondering what's happening on the other side, don't simply pretend everything is fine because you're afraid of what you might discover. Look at the pattern, communicate clearly, protect your boundaries, and remember that walking away from a relationship that repeatedly destroys your peace is sometimes healthier than spending your life trying to prove what you already know you're uncomfortable with. You're standing dangerously close to betrayal, and the longer you remain in a situation that constantly makes you question your place, the more you may end up paying for it with your peace, your confidence, your trust, and eventually your self-respect. Number 3, pay attention to what happens when it's time to make the relationship official. If months have passed and she still avoids defining what you are, refuses to call you her boyfriend, or acts uncomfortable about introducing you to people in her life, don't automatically assume it's an innocent oversight. Sometimes avoiding clarity is the message. She may want the comfort, attention, affection, and benefits of having you around without accepting the responsibility that comes with genuine commitment. You remain close enough to give her what she wants, but distant enough that she never has to fully choose you. This is where many men convince themselves to wait. You tell yourself she simply needs more time. Maybe she had a bad experience before. Maybe labels make her uncomfortable. Maybe eventually she'll realize how serious you are. But don't confuse patience with ignoring reality. If someone genuinely wants to build a relationship with you, they usually don't need to keep you permanently confused about where you stand. They may need time to develop trust, but there should still be some movement toward clarity. Ask yourself a simple question. If she values what you two have, why is acknowledging the relationship such a difficult thing? A healthy relationship doesn't require you to constantly decode your position. You deserve to know whether you are a partner, a casual option, or simply someone filling a temporary space in her life. And don't make the mistake of believing that giving unlimited time will eventually force someone to choose you. You cannot negotiate someone into genuine commitment. A man who understands his value doesn't beg another person to acknowledge him. He communicates what he wants, watches the response, and makes his decision accordingly. If she consistently refuses to give you clarity, believe the pattern instead of creating excuses for it, because staying indefinitely in an undefined relationship can slowly turn you into someone waiting for recognition that may never come. Number 4, look closely at how much genuine care she gives you. Real affection isn't always loud or dramatic. Most of the time, you see it in ordinary moments. She checks on you because she actually wants to know how you're doing. She remembers things that matter to you. She notices when your energy changes. She asks about the problems you're dealing with. She supports you when life becomes difficult. It isn't about expensive gifts or grand romantic gestures. It's about consistent evidence that your well-being matters to her. But what happens when you're always the one giving? If she rarely asks about your life, shows little interest in your struggles, and only becomes attentive when she needs something from you, then you need to seriously examine the relationship. Because a connection cannot remain healthy when one person constantly gives and the other simply receives. You may begin spending more time, more energy, more money, and more emotional effort trying to earn affection that should never have required that much chasing in the first place. Eventually, you'll feel the imbalance. You'll notice that conversations revolve around her. Her problems matter. Her needs matter. Her emotions matter. But when it comes to you, there's suddenly very little attention available. That emptiness after interacting with someone can tell you a lot. Love isn't a machine where you keep inserting effort and wait for affection to come out. A relationship needs reciprocity. Both people should be contributing, supporting, listening, and making each other feel valued. If you are constantly pouring into someone who never pours anything back into you, stop assuming that giving more will somehow create the connection you're missing. A strong man knows when his investment has become completely one-sided. You don't need to keep exhausting yourself trying to prove that you're worthy of care. If she repeatedly shows through her actions that you are not a priority, pay attention to that reality instead of endlessly defending her behavior. Number 5, watch whether her actions actually match her promises. It sounds basic, but this can reveal a tremendous amount about someone's character. When a person says they'll call and actually calls, says they'll show up and actually shows up, or promises to handle something and follows through, they're demonstrating reliability. But when someone constantly makes promises and repeatedly fails to keep them, the issue goes beyond simple forgetfulness. Your words create expectations. Every "I'll call you," "I'll be there," or "I'll take care of it" creates a small piece of trust between two people. When those promises are continually broken, those pieces slowly disappear, and eventually you stop trusting what she says because experience has taught you to expect something different. Ask yourself, if she can't consistently honor small commitments, why would you automatically assume she'll honor the major ones when the stakes become higher? The problem becomes even worse when you start making excuses for her. You lower your expectations. You tell yourself she's busy. You convince yourself it wasn't important. You keep forgiving the same pattern because you don't want to admit what it might mean. But consistency matters. Respect isn't simply about how beautifully someone speaks when everything is going well. It's about whether their behavior supports their words when following through actually requires effort. A person who values your trust understands that credibility takes time to build and seconds to damage. So don't focus only on what she promises. Watch what she repeatedly does. Her actions will eventually tell you whether her words have meaning. And when someone consistently fails to keep their word, don't keep ignoring the pattern simply because you're emotionally attached. Pay attention, communicate your expectations, and decide whether the relationship is giving you the consistency and respect you need. Broken promises don't become a problem because of one mistake. They become a problem when they turn into a repeated pattern. When someone continually says they'll do something and then fails to follow through, their actions are showing you what their words won't. If you keep accepting promises that never become reality, you may eventually find yourself in a relationship where nothing feels dependable. And at some point, you may have to face the possibility that she was never building the same future you believed you were building together. Number 6, pay attention to the place you hold in her life. Everyone gets busy. There's work, family, responsibilities, stress, and personal problems. That's normal. But when someone genuinely values you, they usually find some way to make room for you. If you constantly find yourself waiting weeks to see her, always being the one to reach out, or trying to fit yourself into whatever time remains after everything else, don't keep ignoring the pattern. This is where many men make excuses. You tell yourself she's overwhelmed. Maybe she's under pressure. Maybe things will settle down soon. But people tend to make room for what they genuinely care about. That doesn't mean she has to abandon her responsibilities or be available all day. It means there should be some consistent effort to maintain the connection. She should want to spend time with you, communicate with you, and keep the relationship alive even when life gets difficult. If you're always receiving whatever time happens to be left over, you have to ask yourself whether you're truly being prioritized or simply being kept available. Don't confuse explanations with effort. If the same pattern continues over and over, her behavior is giving you information. A man who respects himself doesn't accept being someone's backup plan. He doesn't spend his life waiting for another person to decide whether he deserves a place in her world. Number 7. Look closely at double standards. This is one of the easiest ways to recognize an unhealthy imbalance. If she expects rules from you that she refuses to follow herself, something is wrong. Maybe she can go out with friends whenever she wants, but when you make plans, she suddenly questions your commitment. Maybe she protects her own privacy while demanding access to every part of your personal life. Maybe she expects complete freedom but wants you to constantly explain where you are and what you're doing. That isn't equality. A healthy relationship should have mutual expectations. Both people deserve trust, freedom, boundaries, and respect. The mistake many men make is constantly compromising just to avoid conflict. You give in again. You overlook another contradiction. You convince yourself that keeping things peaceful is more important than standing up for yourself. But eventually you realize that the peace exists because you're the only one sacrificing. A relationship cannot work when one person gets freedom while the other lives under restrictions. If she expects something from you, she should be willing to offer the same consideration. If something is unacceptable when you do it, it shouldn't suddenly become acceptable when she does it. Don't let fear of losing the relationship make you abandon your own standards. Repeatedly accepting unfair treatment can slowly destroy trust, attraction, and respect. Number 8. Listen to the way she speaks to you. There's a difference between playful teasing and constantly making someone feel small. If she regularly mocks your appearance, dismisses your work, questions your abilities, or embarrasses you in front of other people, don't automatically hide behind the excuse that she's joking. A single comment can be brushed aside, but repeated criticism can slowly change how you see yourself. First, you laugh with her. Then you become more careful about what you say. Eventually, you start questioning yourself just to avoid another negative comment. That's when the behavior becomes damaging. Someone who genuinely cares about you should be able to disagree with you without constantly attacking your confidence. You deserve a relationship where you can grow, Speak openly and feel respected, not one where you're constantly treated like a person who needs to be corrected. Emotional damage often happens gradually. You accept one insult, then another, until lower expectations begin to feel normal. Don't wait until you no longer recognize the confident person you used to be. Number 9. Notice how she treats the people closest to you. She doesn't have to love every friend you have or agree with every member of your family. Differences are normal. But there is a major difference between disagreement and constant disrespect. If she repeatedly insults your family, mocks your friends, creates unnecessary conflict, or tries to make you feel guilty for spending time with people who matter to you, take the pattern seriously. The people closest to you are part of your history and support system. A woman who values you should understand that those connections matter, even if she doesn't personally share the same bond with them. And sometimes constant conflict with your loved ones can become a way of isolating you. The fewer people around you who can offer perspective, the easier it becomes for one person to influence your entire reality. Real love doesn't demand that you abandon everyone who has supported you. A healthy partner can express concerns without forcing you to choose sides. If she repeatedly disrespects the people you care about, look beyond the individual arguments and examine the bigger pattern. Number 10. Pay attention to what happens when something goes wrong. If every disagreement somehow ends with you apologizing, even when she clearly played a role in the problem, you need to question the dynamic. Maybe she forgets something and blames you for not reminding her. Maybe she loses her temper and then claims you caused it. Maybe she crosses a boundary and somehow leaves you wondering whether your expectations were unreasonable. When this happens repeatedly, it can make you question your own judgment. This is where manipulation and gaslighting can become extremely damaging. If someone constantly shifts responsibility onto you, you may eventually begin accepting blame simply because it feels easier than arguing. Over time, your confidence can disappear. You start apologizing for things you didn't do. You question your own memory. You become afraid to trust your own perspective. That isn't healthy love. A mature relationship allows both people to admit mistakes, accept responsibility, apologize, and learn from what happened. One person shouldn't always be carrying the blame. If you recognize this pattern, don't automatically excuse it. Step back and honestly examine what the relationship is doing to your confidence, peace, and sense of self. These 10 signs aren't about condemning someone for one bad moment. Everyone makes mistakes. The real concern is repeated behavior without accountability. Too many men remain in unhealthy relationships because they're terrified of starting again. They keep hoping things will change. They believe patience will fix everything. But love cannot make manipulation acceptable. Love cannot erase disrespect. And without trust, love eventually becomes exhausting. A man who knows his value doesn't beg for basic respect or constantly chase someone who treats him like an option. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's choosing yourself. Choose peace over constant chaos. Choose dignity over endless confusion. Choose a future where you can stand confidently instead of becoming smaller just to keep someone beside you. If you recognize yourself in these situations, don't keep everything inside. Share your experience in the comments. Your story could help another man recognize what he has been ignoring. Subscribe to Female Mindset for more conversations about relationships, boundaries, confidence, and the truths people often avoid. And remember, you deserve a relationship that strengthens you, respects you, and brings peace into your life, not one that slowly takes those things away. Love should never require you to sacrifice your dignity, confidence, or peace. If someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, breaks your trust, or makes you feel like you're never enough, don't ignore the pattern. Know your worth, choose yourself, and remember that walking away from what destroys you can be the first step toward finding what truly strengthens you.